I appreciate every one of you. Yes, it's not been easy, but you've given your time. This class will not have hold if you people were not in class. So a very big appreciation to you all. Okay, so I'll be taking the announcement after the whole class for today. So meanwhile, let's get into the last session. The last session will be handling project management, and the topic for today is stakeholder management. Permit me to share my screen as I read the profile of our last trainer for today. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Permission granted. Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, you can see your screen. Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so the person who will be taking our last session of today's class is Olushola Agbelusi. He is a business strategist, driving operational efficiency and profitability. He's committed to team empowerment. Olushola Agbelusi is a seasoned professional with 12 years optimizing organizational performance and efficiency and driving sustainable growth. He is known for partnering at all stakeholder levels and effecting change. She excels at designing, integrating, and monitoring quality and operational improvement plans. She is a proactive leader who builds a culture of accountability, commitment, and shared success, maximizing and building competent and cohesive teams. Olushola is currently the Chief Operating Officer of Panoramic Synergy Enterprises Limited, a world-class professional services company providing IT consultancy, GRC services, and IT management solutions to various clients across Nigeria, Ghana, and the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, with a resounding round of applause in the chat room, can we make welcome our last trainer for today, who will be taking us on project management, stakeholder management. Olushola, you are welcome. It's good to have you on the call, please. The floor is yours.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mercy. My name is Olushola, and I want to say a big round of applause to everyone that has stayed on the call and is still on the call for this last part of the training. It happens to be the last course for the entire training that we've been going through over the past few weeks. So thank you for being a part of it. Today we'll be discussing stakeholder management with respect to different to projects. So I'm going to take it from this area. So this project, I'm going to explain with the concept of this training that we've been having over the past few weeks. So because it's a project from start to finish, it's actually a project. We actually assigned a start date. We have signed an end date with specific objectives in mind. There's a certain level of, there's a scope to it. There's a time to it, a schedule to it, and it actually has a certain cost. So in essence, I know that I can describe this engagement, this training over the past few weeks as a project, right? So I'll be using that illustration as I go through this. So before I begin, I would like to ask, so if you can unmute, or maybe better still, I can actually check in the chat room, who is the project, who is a shareholder to you, who is a stakeholder to you as of today? So while you answer that question, I will try to present my, I will try to share my slide as it is. Please, I'm looking in for those responses while I actually share, my slide. Okay. So if you can see my slide, please let me know. All right. So
Yes, we can see your
thank you
slides.
very much, Mercy. So who is your most important stakeholder right now? So I'm going to just quickly go into the chat room. Let me see. sometimes it just feels good that someone shares and you look through. But just please permit me. I'm trying to. Okay. Okay, thank you. So please, who is your stakeholder today? Your stakeholder, I mean to you, just tell me, maybe it's a project you're running or someone within your business or someone, who is your stakeholder? So I know Tayo gave me a definition of that stakeholder, but who is the stakeholder? So who is that stakeholder that you have in mind today? So looking at the concept of a stakeholder, who is that stakeholder that you have? I think I have quite, oh, thank you very much, Edidion Ben. Your children, your boss, your colleague, they are stakeholders. So if you have a project that you're running, and you start to look at the success of that project. You start to look at who are the people that can influence the outcome of that your project as it is. Those are the people that you actually call your stakeholders. And today we'll be looking at ways that we can identify these stakeholders and manage them accordingly, right? Our learning objectives for today, if we're going to start, our learning objective will take us back. We're expected to know, to be able to define our stakeholders and why they matter to us. We are expected to be able to differentiate the management of our stakeholders versus the engagement of our stakeholders, identify and actually categorize our stakeholders, outline engagement strategy steps in terms of strategy engagement. Also, we are able to also recognize the importance of communication and trust with respect to our stakeholders. So these are the things that we expected to understand at the end of today's session. So like I explained, who are your stakeholders? They are individuals, they are people. It might be a group of people, might be one person, might be a business, an organization, wherever it is that actually you know that may affect the outcomes of your project, or they might be affected by the outcome of your project, or even if you don't think in your own mindset, you don't think that they are affected, they perceive that they are affected. So for example, if I look at it, so for example, if we look at this project, so just for this training project that I just mentioned, like, okay, this training from beginning to end, who are the stakeholders? Can we quickly outline who the stakeholders for this training are? Can you do that quickly? Just give me who are the stakeholders for this training. Okay, anyone for this training that we are currently on, who are the stakeholders? Please, let's drop it in the chat box. I can identify some, but I want you to identify with me. Let's see. What do you think the stakeholders for this training are? Yes, the facilitators, the students, the trainers. Yes, very important. Trainers, staff, the admin. Mercy on this call is a stakeholder, because if Mercy is meant to help us to facilitate this call and she doesn't come in, then there's a challenge. It might not go as planned. Yes, everyone at the back end, whoever is doing the presentation, whoever is managing the Zoom calls, the students itself, because if they are not, or the trainers, the trainees or the participants, if they are not on this call, then this call cannot hold. This project will be a failure. So it's important to identify who those trainers are. Okay, let's say we have called in a trainer and the trainer does not show up, or the trainer does not come in on time, or the trainer does not deliver as expected, then it affects the outcome of the entire project. So these are our stakeholders. And it's important that we all learn to manage these stakeholders appropriately, because they might affect our project. They might actually they are actually the determinant of how successful the project is, or if the project fails as it is. So we need to understand our stakeholders in various projects. So like I said, this illustration, we have been able to identify, but within our own space, look at the project that you're running, or a project you want to run. And it's important that for the success of that project, one of the things is that you need to identify who those stakeholders are. So why do the stakeholders matter? we must ensure that what goals are understood. For alignment, we need to be able to identify the stakeholders and let them understand why we are doing or why the project is on, right? We need to make them understand, okay, this is our expectations for this project, and this is what we want to achieve. And better still, understand their own perception about it. So in understanding their perception, that means you're gaining support to what it is that we want to do or to our project objectives. And if they're able to support us appropriately, it also increases the success of that project, right? So it's important to understand what the stakeholders have. If you miss out on the stakeholders, you will have a problem. So for example, if you you need to identify that, oh, one of the stakeholders we need for this project or for this training project is probably somebody that responds to maybe responds to the chat room. That's an example. Somebody in the amidst the admin staff that responds to the chat room. Now that is a key role or a key responsibility if you don't understand it, because now there's somebody trying to probably enter into the call or wants to join the call and is struggling. And if the person drops a message in the chat room and there's nobody to respond to that person, then that's the problem. So it's important to understand the areas that matter within our project, and understand the people that are responsible to ensuring that areas or those gray areas are clearly defined or clearly resolved, as the case may be. So when we want to start the project, if you're considering, okay, there'll be people that will be in the chat, there'll be people that will be dropping something in the chat room, and we have to able to follow that communication or that information in the chat room. So we would identify that we need maybe a chat room admin, somebody that will sit in the chat room and document or look through the chat room from time to time to see what's the participant or what anyone is saying on the chat room, so that we can respond as quickly as possible to what they are saying. Now, if you're able to gather that, then we can say that the training can go on much more smoothly because somebody is managing that aspect. Not until somebody comes in and disrupts the training at all. Like, I've been saying something in the chat room, nobody is responding, and that could be a disruption to the training itself. So it's important to be able to identify those that are responsible to make the project a success. So you can see that the next option actually talked about risk reduction. I just thought about it. We can avoid any we can reduce risk in this case, and identifying stakeholders can help us to mitigate those risks. So for example, some of the things that we can envisage is the fact that some people probably don't some people probably, as part of the training, maybe a facilitator, for example, let's say one of the facilitators actually does not like people unmuting and asking questions. He prefers that you send a chat. So it's important to understand these stakeholders and actually ask them and say, okay, maybe proud of the meeting or proud of training, you're asking them, okay, how best do you interact with the trainers? How best can you interact with the trainers? What works for you? You can say, okay, would you like them to unmute during the session and ask questions, or would you like them to send it to the chat room? It's important to understand that, so that even when you're introducing a particular facilitator, albeit that you might think every other facilitator understands or prefers to ask questions or prefers that questions are asked at the end of the training, it's possible that some facilitators might prefer real-time questions, questioning and answering. They want to respond in real time while they are going through the course, rather than at the end of the course. So if you are able to understand it, we can reduce the risk of that training not going as planned, or that facilitator not performing as to his optimal level. So you can reduce risk when you understand your stakeholders and you understand what matters to them. Also, it creates value, right? When at the end of the day we can both have a mutual achievement of value at the end of the project. That works for us, and it's better we understand our stakeholders, understand what they want, what it needs to be able to achieve greater outcomes at the end of the project, right? Okay, so like I said from the beginning, there's a clear difference between stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement. So management says that, okay, this is how we do it. Okay, who are the stakeholders? These are the stakeholders. What do they need? Okay, this is what they need. I just put it in place, and okay, I listen to them, or I try to do a research on my stakeholders, and I say, okay, I identify, okay, this is what the my stakeholder need. Okay, they want things. They want people to be attentive. They want, and I just document those processes, right? For me, I'm just probably gathering information based on my own understanding, or based on my own individual research that I have done. So, and I just structure a way that, okay, this is how I manage those stakeholders. Now, but when we are talking about engagement, it means that I am speaking to the stakeholders themselves. So, for example, I will use the example of children in this case. We can say as parents, we can say, okay, we just tell our children, this is what you need to do. What do they need? They need to eat. Okay, so because they need to eat, at social point they need to play. After playing, they need to read. So we just, that's the management. You just say, okay, this is what my children are supposed to do from time to time, and you just highlight it. However, this engagement means that you can continually speak to them, understand where their home, where their interest is, and understand what they need. So I can decide and say, okay, this is my child, and I sit down with my child and I say, okay, you know what? This is breakfast. We can have bread. We can have bread and egg, and it's very sumptuous. What do you think? And I'm saying, what do you think? And the child comes back to me and say, Mommy, I know you say we want bread. I've eaten bread yesterday, and bread might not work for me today. Why don't we try yam and maybe had some stew to eat? I wouldn't want to take bread because this is how I feel, or something like that. So you have engaged that child to understand what the preference of that child is. So, for example, also in stakeholder, like I mentioned earlier, if I use the illustration of the training, I said that there are questions that will be asked. So you're asking also, so let's say maybe from the beginning of the training, and we could have thrown in like a survey, or a questionnaire to everyone that has registered to be on this training, and say, okay, what kind of what would you want us to do, or how would you want us to go about this training? Would you want like an instructor-led section, and maybe in addition, like what should I call it now? Maybe in addition, you want us to send you training materials or something like that. What would you prefer? What timing would you prefer for this training? What works for you? Do we do it in the morning? Maybe in the morning till afternoon, or do we start from like maybe mid-afternoon to late evening, to just garner the interest or the preference of our stakeholders? So this is one great reason between the one big reason between difference between the management and engagement. Engagement says that you're talking to your stakeholders, understanding what their needs are, what their expectations are, and it's usually continuous. So in a way, you're building a relationship with your stakeholders. You're not the one deciding what works. You're listening to them, you're understanding their perception and their views. And with this, you can have project success. Projects is much more successful, or projects are much more successful if you actually take the role of you take an engagement role rather than a management role. So it's good for us to understand is there's a continuous feedback between you and the stakeholder when you're engaging a stakeholder, right? So we're going to talk about stakeholder management. At least I will talk briefly on the perspectives according to PMBOK, right? That's the Project Management Book of Knowledge. Now, according to the 6th edition, it's about, okay, in stakeholder management is about identifying your stakeholders, planning how you engage with them, then managing your engagement, so, and monitoring them. So it's according to the 6th edition, these areas are actually defined by processes. So the processes of initiating, planning, managing, and monitoring, executing, monitoring, and controlling. These are the 4 processes that are involved in stakeholder management when we are looking at the 6th edition perspective. Now, the 7th edition is a a different ball game itself. I think when you're looking at the seventh edition of the PM book, I want to believe that people, we all got the PM book. If you're looking at it, there's the stakeholder performance domain. That's where you actually find key areas around stakeholder management. And this goes beyond just planning. It's not about processes. This is more about principles. It's about looking at, you're looking at project stakeholder management, like, okay, are you driving value? Are you driving value while you're managing your stakeholders? Are you able to adapt? When I talk about adapt, we're talking about tailoring your management or your engagement to your particular or individual stakeholders. Meaning that in this in this what should I call it now? Let's look at our training example. In this training project example, I'll be looking at it that, okay, I want to tailor my conversations or my communications to different stakeholders separately. So the way I engage with the facilitators will be quite different from the way I engage with the trainers, and will be quite different from the way I engage with the admin staff itself. So, and also we have to understand that it is continuous. You know, I said it because our stakeholders, their needs and expectations, they shift. So, for example, so initially maybe a particular trainer happens to be able to communicate well via WhatsApp. So something changes, right? Maybe the WhatsApp is using no longer works or something. There's a malfunction or a dysfunction. Now it's when we continually communicate and see we cannot communicate, we have given, when we collaborate, we give room to the stakeholder, which is one of the trainers, or sorry, one of the participants, to say, you know what, my WhatsApp is no longer working. Is it possible for you to communicate with me via my email? Let me send my email address to you. So in a way, we need to understand. We need to understand that, you know, the requirements or the expectations or the needs of the participants can change, and for that we need to continually get their views. So I thank God that if you look at it, the way this training has gone, at the end of every training, I want to believe there is a feedback, like a feedback form that comes in, and this is used to actually garner, okay, what is your experience? What do you think we can do better? And in some ways, you hear people or you hear some participants say, you know what, we want you to send training materials even ahead of the training. Maybe because we want to prepare ahead of the training. You know, that kind of thing. So it's important to understand what is important to your stakeholders and be able to drive the success of your project via that engagement, right? Okay, so further into the PM Boss 6th edition, I think I have talked about it. You want to identify your stakeholders. So you want to know what their interests are. What are they expecting from you? What influence do they have on your project? So you have a facilitator. So let me give this instances. So we have facilitators, and maybe for a particular course, you happen to just have maybe the staff of TCPT happen to just have one single facilitator. Now, for another course, they have about 3 facilitators that can take particular what's it called? I can take that particular course. Now, the power that the power that the facilitator for one course has is quite higher than the power that the facilitators for that course with 3 different facilitators. The powers are different. Now, it's important to fully engage and ensure that they are fully engaging the one with the highest power, because they know that they have only one facilitator for this course. So it's important that they manage this person. They ensure that this person is available. They will follow. Please don't forget, our training is so date. You know, there's a high level of engagement with this particular facilitator based on the influence that facilitator has over the course, because now it is the only one person that can take that course, maybe per that period. Now, for the course of 3, where we have 3 facilitators, it's a different ball game. It's a different thing entirely. So they can decide to use somebody else, and they have alternatives, right? So it's quite different. So they know if A doesn't work, B is working, so they kind of manage them differently. But you can see that the influence will be different, and the impact of such of any mishap or any cancellation the impact of any cancellation of any of those facilitators will be quite different. The one facilitator course, if the facilitator cancels the course, you know that there might be need for the trainers to come, for TCBT to come and say, you know what, please, we might have to move this training to a later time. Please bear with us. But in a situation where they have alternatives, and what they do is just say, you know what, somebody, they call on the facilitator B and say, please take this training from us. So you need to identify the influence or the impact your stakeholders will have on your project and be able to manage them appropriately with respect to that impact. Now, some of the things you saw, some of the tools we have for managing that, we have the stakeholder register as it is. Sometimes we use the power interest grid. We will get to that, and I also share what a stakeholder register looks like in a few slides down, the line. All right, the second one is planning. So you have to develop strategies, right? How do we engage the stakeholders, right? Okay, this is what their needs are. Not just like I said, a stakeholder say, I would rather work via email. So you start to look at it. Okay, you know what? How do we engage? That means you must have that. Maybe after every session, despite that we are sharing the slides on, maybe sharing the slides to the team, maybe on the WhatsApp channel. We might decide, okay, to share via emails too, because we have some stakeholders that this is how they get their training. So you also look at expectations. So some trainers have come to you and said their expectations that we want that some trainees, right, participants, that at the end of at the end of every course, we want something very practical. We don't just want somebody to come in and train us. We want all them to be able to tell us, okay, how do we do this? When we get into the field, how do we do that? How do we demonstrate this? So when you understand, then you start to look at, okay, what kind of engagement? So with that, I can take that input from my stakeholder when I'm planning, like, okay, this is what they want, this is our expectations. They want something practical, hands-on. And in my engagement strategy, when I'm planning my engagement strategy, I take this, what the expectations of the participants, I take it to the trainees, right? To the trainers or the facilitators, and I say, you know what, our trainers, our participants or our students want a situation where they can practicalize. So please, in your training on how you're engaging, please can you please include some practical applications for them so that they can get better knowledge of what it is that they are doing. Also, you might look at it. So another example, you're training and you like to look at the demographics of the people that you're training. So you can look at it and, okay, the people that I'm training, for example, might be Gen Zs, or are the people I'm training that are elderly people. So based on that, you kind of can demonstrate, okay, what can their expectations be? So a Gen Z, for example, wants a training that is fun-loving, how you engage them and all that. So how you do that can be different. There's a different way that you actually now strategize what the training will look like and all that. So that's an example of planning. So in managing your stakeholders, where you actually execute, this is where you now develop ways of how do you now actively engage your stakeholders? How do you communicate to them? How do you ensure that they give you the right responses? How do you ensure that if there's any issues, you can resolve it appropriately? So you have to now you have to develop this, and in developing this, so for example, you start to look at, okay, engaging stakeholders according to plan. So you sent in a feedback form and they have filled it, and you now implement that feedback form against the next training, ensuring that you are meeting the expectations of your participants. Another example is maybe for this training, an example is, okay, so people start to say, you know what, we don't like how the training is going. So you begin to say, okay, how do we address this? Okay, so a part of execution is when, example, when people come in and say, you know what, we can't hear you. Now, because you have put in certain people in the chat room to manage that, they begin to address those concerns, Abby, those issues while the trainer is going on, the training is going on, and that is not affected. So at the background, they need to manage the concerns or manage issues with respect to the stakeholders. And the final one is actually monitoring. And monitoring is actually understanding that, okay, you're engaging your trainer. So for example, we had a training last week, we had 40 participants. Now we are here in this week, and people coming on this week is 20 participants. You start to ask yourself what is going on. Now you can decide to go back to your to your maybe that feedback form you filled, and try to analyze it to say what went wrong, or what are people saying. Okay, how can we improve? How can we ensure people come on the call? Do we need to call them? So some people might tell you, maybe from the WhatsApp group or a group or community that was created for this training, and from that training you hear, oh, why did people come on the call? Then you start to hear people say, oh my God, I forgot. Oh, this is what happened. Then you start to look, okay, how do we ensure that people are always remembering? So in that, you start to that's what we say, you're monitoring the engagement. Okay, you're saying, okay, this is how people are behaving. You're looking at their behavior and trying to use consider their behavior to put in improvement measures to ensure that maybe the outcome of a later time or a later date is more successful than the previous one. So this is how we do it. Okay, this is what happened. We used to send in reminders maybe on Mondays and on Mondays and Wednesdays for the training. But we see that a lot of people forget at the end of the day. So we need to send in reminders on Fridays and early morning. This is an example of you adjusting your strategy after you have monitored the engagement with your stakeholders. Are we all with me? Just to be sure. I hope I can be heard, and I hope I'm not too fast.
Yes, we are with you.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm not too fast. So this is
The pace is okay. The pace is okay.
God bless you. So this is looking at it from a 6th edition perspective. And there's a diagram here that you can look at that talks about the inputs, the tools, and the outputs. But 7th edition has taken us away from looking at it based on processes. Now, for the 7th edition, you look at it based on what do I call it? Based on principles. So 7th edition is telling you that you have to identify your stakeholders early, right? And why do we identify them early? So when you identify your stakeholders, you understand their needs and expectations. We are able to put this into your strategy, right? Into your entire project strategy, and at the end, so that in the future, you don't find somebody telling you, oh, you cannot work that way. We cannot go that way. We cannot go that route. We cannot. The morning is not okay. So, for example, for this training now, we didn't identify stakeholders. We didn't identify what works. Then we decided to have this in the morning, like morning session. Apparently, let's say majority of the people that want to be on this call, including the facilitators, or majorly the facilitators, are only available in the evenings. They are not even, let's even take Saturdays, is fine, but they are only available in the evenings. And you kind of now position all your facilitators, you position the training for mornings. You can see that at the end of the day, you might just find out that when the training is on, you start to look for facilitator, because the facilitator is nowhere to be found, because their preference is not even in the evening, in the morning. They prefer the evenings, and you could have actually structured that training to hold in the evening. I'm just saying. So it's good to identify your stakeholders and identify them so that you can understand their needs and expectations, so that you can impute that into your strategy, build your strategy around it, so that you can ensure that you can minimize whatever resistance you're going to get later into the project. Now, also, you need to, another perspective is to be able to prioritize. So the 7th edition emphasizes on prioritization, right? So not everybody has the same level of influence. So, for example, the fact that the person in the chat room, right, or the person managing the chat room is not available, doesn't mean that we can cancel the project, the training. But imagine the facilitator is not around or is not available, then we can cancel. So we start to prioritize that, okay, the facilitator is better important here. Or in the situation prioritization, the student, if the facilitator is there and the student is not there, please. So who is the facilitator facilitating for? So if you look at it, the priority for the training is the participant on the call, because the participants have to be on the call. So if I'm going to prioritize, I will look at it, okay, my major prioritization, who is this training for? The training is for the students or the participants. They need to be here. So I try to strategize, or develop a strategy to ensure that I have the maximum number of people or participants on the training, Also, the fact that I can maximize, I can ensure that I can improve on engagement. So there's no point them being on the call if they are not fully engaged, because what I'm expecting is that it's a successful training where the trainers are excited to be there, they are happy to be there, they want to do, as you know, they take something from the training. So I prioritize I prioritize the trainer, I prioritize the trainees, that's the students, ensuring that I put in a course, I design a course that is very effective, and ensure that I put, by looking at the prioritization of the students, I start to look at what are their expectations. They're expecting a very great facilitator, so I start to look for the facilitators. They are expecting great deliveries. I communicate this to the I communicated this to the facilitator that though this is the type of delivery that my participants are looking at. Then they're expecting that they are conflict with whatever issues that they have, they can be addressed as quickly as possible. Then I begin to understand, maybe I just assign a role, or I assign that responsibility to somebody that gets it done as quickly as possible. Now, another thing is engagement versus communication. So according to 7th edition, you want to engage your stakeholders, right? You want to build relationships with them. You want to understand their perspective, their views in developing your project strategy. It's not just saying that we have a project, please be on board, right? That's more like communication. Okay, there's a training and we want you to be on board, chicken. But when you talk about engagement, there's a training that we want to. What would you like to have? What are the nice to have in addition to what we already have with this training? So you're trying to garner their interest. You're trying to garner their expectations. You're trying to improve on what it is on your delivery to your major stakeholders as it is. So you're engaging them, right? So also we need to understand that stakeholders can change. I don't know where I'm going to use this in this illustration. Stakeholders can change, their needs can change. Okay, I have said that before. Their needs can change across the cycle. So across this training, stakeholders' needs have changed. You've seen some people come and say, you know what, I hope we are going to get a certificate at the end of this thing. So at the end of this training. So let's say initially there was no certificate or something, or somebody says, at the end of this training, please can we get a recommendation saying that we participated in this training. Now you begin to look at those things because it can change, and when it's changing, you have to find ways to restructure or rearrange your strategy to accommodate what your stakeholder needs. This is very important. Also, trust and transparency. When you're managing stakeholders, engaging them, you must manage their expectations. You must be transparent. Okay, if you are going to have a constraint, you have to be clear about it. So, for example, we are going through this training now. Let's say peradventure a facilitator is struggling with their internet and suddenly it went off. It is very important. It is very, very important to ensure that this project or this training is a success, that there is clear communication. So the likes of Mercy, who is anchoring or hosting this training, would not keep quiet. In fact, as a matter of fact, Mercy should immediately come on the call and say, please permit us, or please allow us, the facilitator is having troubles. And even in that gap, that space of time, Mercy can try to even engage the entire team. Okay, so far this is what we've what are your challenges, are there any questions, so that gap is not felt. So you can see that by trying to do that, she can actually improve on the outcomes of outcomes of the training as it is. So you don't just keep quiet like, that's happened again, internet has gone. Hey, all these things can happen. So you have to be able to communicate this, being open and transparent. So this is a constraint on the project. The facilitator is having internet issues. Please understand with us. This doesn't normally happen, but please bear with us. This is what is happening. So, for example, I used to be mad about a situation like this. I don't know how many of us has experienced it. You walk into the bank and everybody's on the queue. right? Customer service. So yeah, I know. I want to believe I have done that for those that have gone into the banks most of the time. And you just enter into the bank and this queue is very lengthy and nobody's telling you anything. And you know what? The customer service people in front of you, they are tapping on their screen, pa, 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 pa. And nothing, as in, and the queue is not moving for the last maybe next 30 minutes. And you're like, it gets people mad. I'm like, what are we doing? We're just standing on the queue. So that's a scenario. The second scenario is somebody comes in and say, we apologize. There is a network issue, and we're trying to correct that. Please bear with us. Then there's something that some banks used to do now. They'll go to you and say, what exactly do you want to do? Okay, they start to direct you. You can be on that queue for 30 minutes. I don't know if anybody has experienced it. You'll be on that queue for 30 minutes and you don't have a business with that queue. At the end of the so-called 30 minutes, when you get to the front of the customer service and you want them to attend to you, then they now refer you elsewhere. Now that's a problem. That's an inability to manage your stakeholder expectations, right? I don't know. Anybody experience that? I'm sure I'm not the only person. Anybody experience something like that? Anyone, quickly.
It's really common with GT.
Oh, I didn't want to mention GT before, but thank you very much. Actually, that was the bank on my lips, but I just didn't want to do that during this training. But actually, I've experienced it with them. But they're starting to improve when you begin to understand. See, when you communicate to people that this is the issue, right? They tend to want to, get up. They've told us. Even if somebody is raking, another person will say, they've told us there's network issue. Let's bear with them. That kind of thing. So it happens. Thank you very much for that input. Right? All right. Straight to the second thing. So I was going to tell us. Okay. So these are ways that we can actually identify, analyze our stakeholders. Now, quite a number of people are very familiar with this. I want to believe some people might be familiar. Some might be unfamiliar with it. Now, when you look at your stakeholders, you can categorize them into stakeholders with high power or high interest, right? Or low power or low power or low interest, as the case may be. So when you start to look at it, so for a participant or a trainee or a student that registers for this course, for example, the training means that the training the participant or the participant or the student has high interest. He has gone further from seeing the flyer to registering, and aside registering, let me even add one. After registering, now the trainee trainee or the student, as if I look at everyone that is on this call right now, has gone further to even participate in the training and even stayed to this time. They have high interest, and that's why they are here. Now, if these participants don't sit on this call, if the people here at this moment are not here on this call, then there's no reason why I'm sitting down there. Then the entire training has failed. So in a way, these people, they have high power because they are the ones that would ensure that this training is called a training, because I can be speaking to the empty space. So you have high power as a participant in this call. As at now, you're sitting down here, you have high power and high interest. And for that, I would rather manage you closely. So the outcome of what to do when you have stakeholders with high power and high interest is to manage them closely, right? You're managing them, you're working together with them to give them what they need, ensure that they are satisfied, as the case may be. Somebody says, oh, I did not listen, I missed the part of the call, I was there, but I had to step out. Oh, please, can I have the recording? Okay, you provide. You ensure that they have the materials. You ensure that you support them as much as possible. That's the high power, high interest. You manage those stakeholders closely. Now, high power, low interest. They don't really have interest. They just have power. So, for example, let's say we have a sponsor for this training. So, this training is practically free, but we have a sponsor that is sponsoring, the facilitator sponsoring so many things going beyond. I wouldn't even call them low interest, so to speak. But let's even say that, that one is just sponsoring. So they have the money power behind it, maybe the financial power behind it. We have to keep them satisfied. In a way, we have to provide information. Oh, this is how the training went. A lot of people gave feedback. A lot of people. So at the end of the day, we give them a report for the training saying that, oh, the training was a success. So we graduated so number of people. So you keep them satisfied. You keep them satisfied as it is, and you inform them appropriately. Now there are the people that have the low power, high interest. Like they don't have so much power, but they have interest. So for example, let's say this is a paid training. This is a paid training, right? But maybe based on the training fee, some people couldn't be a part of this training. Now, these people have low power, but they have a very high interest. They want to be a part of it, but they couldn't participate. So you keep informing them of what is going on within maybe within the TCBT space. So, for example, this training has been going on. Maybe there's going to be another training, like a next cohort, or so to speak. Now, these people, you want to keep them informed. You keep providing information to them because their circumstances can change. At the end of the day, there can be somebody that has the power to be a part of the training at a point in time, which we always crave for, that they'll be able to participate sometime. Maybe even their low power might not be monetary. Maybe they are not just available at this time. So they are not really somebody, they are not really, you're not putting so much resources, but you have to keep them informed so that when they now have the power, that means the capacity to be a part of the training, they can now be a part of that training. So that's a low power, high interest. Right. Now there's low power, low interest. Now, they might be low power, they might be low interest. But the thing is that to an extent, you still have to monitor them. Like I said, circumstances around them can change. So you want to be able to, you want them to be a part of it at the point where they have either high power or high interest in with respect to your project. Now, the goal of the stakeholder identification and the stakeholder analysis is to ensure that we can prioritize stakeholders so that we can focus on the right people per time. We have the right focus for each of these stakeholder areas, right? All right, so quickly, let's move on. So practical implication for project managers is that, like I said, we have to move from that managing stakeholders, just building a process or something like that, or just setting up or documenting things, to actually engaging our stakeholders, understanding what their needs are, what channels would they want us to come, how would they want us to communicate with them, or what would they want us to do per time, what do they want involved. So you have to engage your stakeholders. Then you have to go beyond your checklists and registers. You are developing relationships, right? You are trying to understand who is who. When you are running a project, you need to know who is who. You need to know who is who in that project. So for example, let me give you a project within the family. So in the family, maybe sometimes if you have a large family and you have to manage the TV or the stations within your home, right? You want to know who is who. So you want to watch football. You want to know who is who can influence the fact that football is what we watch. That's the person you go and seek cooperation with, like, let's work there. That person, if he says it's football we are watching, it's football we are watching. So you get to know the person who can help me to achieve the success of this project. You need to understand. You need to read between the lines, right? There are some people, they are very hidden. So let me tell you, you get to, for example, you have a project, and that project, you think that is a guy at the top, right? Is a key decision maker. You need to look between the lines. There are some people, they are very silent, but the power they hold behind, you'll be shocked. Like, so for example, you want to hold the project, and let's say that there is in that organization, let's say there is a gate man. Let me just use it. There's a man at the gate, right? That is very influential. Maybe that man has been there for 25 years and is well respected. And you know that your project will involve this person. I beg, you want to go and sit with that person and understand that person and know that person and, build a relationship. Because these are people that will go behind and go and create and find a way. They'll just find a way, right? There are people that you can just suggest for that. I think this thing will go like this. And before you know it, the other Apatata is making a decision in that direction. So you need to be able to read behind and between the lines. Also, you have to be cultural sensitive. When you're managing projects, it's very important to be cultural sensitive. This is very important. Understanding human behaviors and cultural behaviors is very important. So Some projects, if you go there, so for example, if you go and work with a private organization, it's quite different from when you're handling a project with a public agency. So I'm working with Lagos State is quite, because Lagos State is a protocol driven, or a state government. Let me not use the a state government or a government parastatals. They are protocol driven industries. So there are protocols. So you need to understand those protocols. Now, sometimes you might be working with certain demographics. You need to understand how to relate to them. You might be working with certain ethnicities within your project. You need to understand how to work with them. Also, you need to see stakeholders as risk factors. Sorry, not just as risk. Their value, they can contribute to your project. So you want to seek experts. So some people have been here for a long time. You want to seek their suggestion. You want to seek their opinions and views. Very important. Another thing is that you must apply tailoring. I gave an example here. So you have an IT transformation project in Lagos, right? You need to understand what each stakeholder needs from you. Some need a formal report, some need, okay, for you to always train them on something. So you must understand those needs, and you must be able to implement or impute those needs into your overall project strategy, right? Okay, next thing we should be talking about, I want us to look at an activity together. So the activity is that there's a public infrastructure project in the state. So I'm going to use Lagos State because I know everybody here is not from Lagos State. So I'm going to use Lagos State, and we're going to use maybe a road project. Let's use a road project, just like the one that is happening around that Oworo Shoki or something, Oworo side and Third Mainland Bridge and all that. So together, one of the things you need to do, you need to understand who are the stakeholders, and we're going to do that together. I hope you can help me. I would like us to unmute when we do this so that it can be faster. We're going to list the stakeholders. We are going to place them. We are going to look at it. What power do they have? What interests? Who are the most critical stakeholders as it is? Can we do that quickly? If we can do that, so say hi. So steps you're going to take in developing the strategy, right? We want to identify the stakeholders. We'll know what their influence and interest is. We'll plan our engagement. We'll engage via tailored communication. Then you monitor and adapt. If you want to develop an engagement strategy, right, for your project, engagement, that means a stakeholder engagement strategy. You need to be able to, these are the practical steps you need to take. You first need to identify those stakeholders, which is from that activity, what we will do. Identify stakeholders, analyze the influence and interest, plan our engagement, right? Engage via tailored communication. What are the communication that, okay, so for example, I want to talk to the governor. Trust me, I probably will not send an email. He will never read it. So my communication might be, I need to talk to the PA. Or my communication might be, I need to send a letter or a memo. Or my communication might be based on maybe my relationship with the governor, as the case may be. Maybe it's a chat, for example. So you need to understand what communication is best for each of these people and be able to engage them via this communication channels, right? Also, you have to review your strategy. Is it working? Oh, so somebody you have been sending emails, you've not gotten response. Every time you get to that, I sent you an email, I never saw it. I sent you an I did not see it. Then you have to start looking at it that sending emails will not work. So what should I do? Okay. Then you might now go ahead and ask the person, so what's the best way for me to communicate? If I have information for you, how do I do it? And they tell you, then you go and restructure your engagement strategy or your engagement with respect to this person. Okay, it's not working this way. This is the way it works. All right. So for communications and trust, to actually be able to take communication and to be able to ensure communication and trust within your stakeholder groups, you have to be transparent. I have said this before. We should tailor messages according to our stakeholders. So the way we put a message to, so for example, for this training, I know one thing for sure. There's a link or there's something, there's a particular information that goes into for the participants. So I'm sure there's a group where information is passed to the participants. Also, there's also a group that information is passed to the facilitators. At least I'm on one of those groups where I get information with respect to facilitation of the training. Okay, you're a trainer. The trainers are on one group where they throw information with respect to certain areas of the training. So different messages. I'm sure it's not the same messages that is passed to the participants that is passed to us as trainers. So there are different messages. So we need to tailor those messages to our different stakeholders. Then we should encourage feedback. So many times it's not just us talking. We should actually ask, okay, what do you think happened? So how do you think we can improve? What can we do better? And all that. Always ask that question. And it's always good sometimes that you are not only asking, you're not asking yes or no questions. You have to be open. You should ask open-minded questions where people are able to express their perception with respect to that engagement, so to speak. So, for example, you see even some surveys or some questionnaires when they've asked yes, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, then and they leave an open. Please give us comment. How can we improve? That's an open-minded question. So, because you want to really hear from your stakeholders, you want to hear something very elaborate, something very clear. All right, then build long-term trust. So ensure that you're ethical about this. So I remember that from the first session, we talked about leadership, and we're talking about ethical leadership. We talked about transformative leadership. Whatever it is that you are doing, you're the one managing the project. It's important that you are ethical. Let people see you as somebody they can trust. When they can trust you, they can divulge information to you. They can help you to grow, help you develop better. So I don't know, for want of time and not taking people's time, I know I talked about this activity, and I'm not sure if we can take this. I don't know, Mercy, but this is a sample of a stakeholder management, engagement strategy. Like you can create a template out of this. So you're looking at your stakeholder, right? So you start to identify what are the stakeholders. So for example, one of the stakeholders for this project will be who? Can you help me? So what are the stakeholders for building this project, this road project? Anybody? I don't mind. Please, can you unmute? Just tell me. We can just take the first line and I can just give a brief of the next line. Please, we have just, I think we have about 7 minutes. Anyone, please? I hope I'm not the only one. I'm dancing right now. I hope I'm not the only one that has been on this call from the beginning to the end. Wow. Ooh. All right. Please unmute. Thank you. Hello.
We are
We are
here.
with you. We are with you, man.
We can hear you.
I know you are with me. I know you are, but I just asked the question.
I think the first stakeholder in that project should be the Lagos State government.
Thank you. So I'm going to enter Lagos State government, LG government. So what's their role on this project? What do you think they should be doing with respect to this project?
I think they are the financial and they are the major stakeholder, and they are
So maybe they are the executive sponsors, right? Yes. They are the executive sponsors. Like you said, they are the financiers, right? If you are looking at it, so they want this project to be a success, right? That's what they want. So when we get to needs and expectations, that's what you'll be putting there. What are their needs and expectations? That the project meets timeline. But what's their influence or level here? What's the influence level? What do you think it should be?
Their influence is very high, very high.
High, thank you, sir. They have high influence. So what's their power? Power interest. What do you think it should be?
Very high too. Their power is high too.
Their power is high too. So they have high power, high interest. So for example, they are high power and high interest. And their priority is very critical. So as a project manager, you need to understand this. So I've just done, like a first one for us. So, hold on, sorry. Let's for clearer stuff when we want to, maybe when this slide is being shared to everyone. Okay. wanted to delete this. Okay. All right. So we have this. So I don't use that to delete. The second one is so let's say this is our stakeholder again, the LG government, right? All right. So what's their role and interest in this case? Sorry, their needs and expectation. Project success, right? Project success, which you said within specified
Specified standards.
Timeline. Yes. So that's their needs and expectations, right? Potential concerns they might have as Lagos State government. Probably, what do you think? Concerns the government might have, maybe based on the timeline, they are looking at project delay. That the project might be delayed. That's project delay. So your desired value from those projects is that probably you'll be looking at successful or excellent, I don't know, maybe excellent road construction, let's say within how many weeks? Let's say it's a 12 weeks project. Within 12 weeks. This is us using the public infrastructure, which is the road construction. Are we following? Is this clear to us?
Yes, ma. Yes, ma.
Okay, so this part is actually, I think this is an error. This is your engagement strategy. This is your communication engagement strategy. How do I do this? So this is a communication. I have 2 minutes / engagement strategy. All right, so your stakeholder, maybe your executive sponsors, you can say your executive sponsors are here, the category. How do we engage them? Your engagement method, you're looking at it. Okay, how do we ensure that we're engaging these people? Maybe through okay, monthly meetings. So maybe, okay, sorry, let me say meetings. My frequency is monthly. The owner who is engaging them, who will be engaging them, maybe the PMs or the PM, as the case may be, the project manager. And what tools or channels would we be using? Maybe a physical engagement. So if it could be so physical, I can say physical or virtual engagement, right? Physical or virtual. So I can put virtual, I can decide if I know the channel, I can say maybe via Zoom. Physical, maybe I can say secretariat. Sorry, government house. Let me even use government house, for example. I can say government house. This is how we meet. Yeah. And it's physical. We meet in the government house. If it's virtual, we go via Zoom. Is that clear? Do you have clarity around this? Please drop it on the chat if you have clarity so we can move. Thank you. Clarity. So I think I'm done with this call. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Adebayo, for that. Thank you, Stephen. So that's the clarity around this is what we do. So this is more like a stakeholder engagement strategy that you can put together. You can look at, okay, how do we communicate? What meetings? How often do we have those meetings? So this is just tabulating it all in one. You can do this for your various projects and for various stakeholders on the project. So on a final note, so what's your action? So what will you take differently? What would you do differently tomorrow with respect to stakeholder management? So can you tell me, Stephen, Isaac, if you're there? So you have projects or you have a project, based on what you have learned today, what would you do differently? So can I have...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for that impactful session. I think one of the things that we basically do different is to change my channel of engaging with the stakeholders.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I think I will adopt that.
Okay, thank you. Isaac, what do you have to say? I don't know. I have 20 people on this call. Maybe they are ghost students. I don't understand. But I would like to get everybody's responses. Adebayo says he's going to review his stakeholder identification and analysis. That means helping to understand who has a high power, who has a high influence or high interest on the project, so that you can prioritize those stakeholders. Okay, Thais Global, you're here. Timothy, Princess. I have so many people on the call. Can you please tell me, as we round up, what exactly are you going to do differently with respect to managing your stakeholders going forward? Our time is fast spent, so just round up with this. Lainka, you're there. Shrib, you're there. Buffet, you're there. You can drop it on the chat. What would you be doing differently with respect to your project? Your projects come from your homes, come from your offices, your churches, your mosque, any place of worship, your community. So what would you be doing differently in managing your stakeholders based on what you have learned today? Quickly, I have Richmond, I have Gabriel. Can I have your responses, please? Thank you. As we round up, Mercy. Mercy, I'm handing over to you as it is. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shala. It was very nice having you on the call. Please, a round of applause. Send it coming. I believe we all enjoyed this session from the very first to this very last. Please, let's keep our appreciation coming. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Isaac. And